3.5 years into our marriage, I thought we had a good life together. Not perfect, but stable. I worked as a director for a tech sales company, which required frequent business trips. My wife, Kathy, held a high-paying corporate job. We met 5 years ago at a mutual friend's barbecue. She was beautiful, intelligent, and confident. The kind of woman I never thought I'd have a chance with. But somehow I caught her attention. Our relationship ignited instantly, and after 18 months of dating, we got married. The first 3 years were smooth, but things gradually changed. Kathy started working late more often, spending more time at company outings. We argued about little things, and our intimacy faded. I told myself she was just exhausted from work, until the day I found the first sign of her betrayal. That night, Kathy came home late as usual and asked me to grab some groceries from her car. As I reached into the back seat, something pink caught my eye, peeking out from under the front passenger seat. I picked it up. It was a bra. Kathy's, my stomach twisted. I knew her wardrobe well. She only bought lingerie from a particular store, so there was no doubt it was hers. But why was it under the car seat? Kathy had a habit. Whenever she was feeling particularly passionate, the bra came off first. I knew this. And in that moment, one horrifying thought entered my mind. It had been taken off in the car, but not by me. I stood there for a few seconds, my hands gripping the fabric tightly. When I walked back inside, Kathy noticed my expression and frowned. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a small smile. "Yeah, just tired." I didn't say anything that night, but deep down, I knew I couldn't ignore this. I started paying closer attention to her behavior, the late nights, the constant work texts, the growing distance between us. One Friday, I decided to test her. I prepared a romantic dinner, candles, wine, fresh flowers. I wanted to see how she would react. Kathy walked in, took one look at the table, and sighed. "Oh, Paul, I'm sorry. I already made plans to go out with coworkers. I just came home to shower and change." I didn't argue. I simply cleaned up the table and tossed the flowers in the trash. She didn't even notice. After her shower, she dressed up beautifully. Tight dress, perfect makeup, a scent I hadn't smelled in months. "Are you mad?" she asked, seeing me standing silently. I just said, "Go." She shrugged and left. The moment the door shut, I pulled out my second phone, the one I had secretly placed in her car. I opened the tracking app. 20 minutes later, she stopped at a familiar bar. I drove there, parked at a distance, and waited. An hour later, Kathy walked out, with a man. He was well-dressed, clearly an executive from her company. Then he pulled her close and kissed her. My heart stopped, but I wasn't done. I followed them as they got into his car. 10 minutes later, they pulled up to a hotel. That was all the proof I needed. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My vision blurred with rage and heartbreak. I didn't confront her. I didn't scream. Instead, I drove, away from the city, away from her. That night, I found myself at a bar miles away, drowning in whiskey. That's when I met Rye, a complete stranger, but the man who would change my life. Rye owned land up in the mountains and had a small trailer he was willing to rent out for cheap. I didn't hesitate. Over the next few days, while Kathy was at work, I slowly moved my belongings out of our apartment. When she left for a business trip, I left for good. I didn't take any shared furniture, just my essentials. On the kitchen table, I left a short note with my wedding ring on top. I hope it was worth it. And then, I walked out of that life. A year later, she found me. I ran into her at a cafe in town. She gasped when she saw me. "Paul, I've been looking for you," she said, eyes filled with emotion. "Can we talk?" Against my better judgment, I agreed. We sat on a bench outside. She looked me over, commenting on how much I had changed, my beard, my physique. She was still beautiful, but I felt nothing. Then she said the words I had expected. "I'm sorry for everything." She told me she lost everything, her job, her affair partner, even her self-respect. "I made a terrible mistake," she whispered. "Can you ever forgive me?" I looked her in the eyes and simply said, "No." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I still love you." I let out a bitter chuckle. "Did you love me before or after you walked into that hotel with him?" She was silent. I stood up. "Goodbye, Kathy." And this time, I knew I was truly free. I'm not saying everyone should handle betrayal like I did, but if you've been cheated on, remember this. You don't have to forgive them. You don't owe them a second chance. I built a new life for myself, and I have no regrets. And you can, too. Thank you for reading my story. If you found it meaningful, follow my channel for more real-life stories that inspire and empower.